Something I realized recently is that I've been very selfish with the types of videos that I've been making over the last year or so. I think I've gone a lot better recently, but I've been talking more about my current situation and the things I'm going through on a day-to-day basis, rather than talking about the past and my problems that I've had that I'm sure a lot of you are going through now. And the reason why I've been selfish is because it's genuinely very painful for me to revisit this stuff. It's much easier for me to be a coward and to just sort of lean into where I am now, you know, and talk about that. That's a lot more fun. But the reality is I show up here every single day because I want to provide you guys value. And a lot of you aren't just yet free of mental anguish. So I'm going to stop being selfish and I'm going to start talking about some fucking real shit now. And I'm going to try and sprinkle in some humor. I was the CEO of depression, guys. If you flick to the definition of down bad in a dictionary, you would see Sam Harborne. I was very, very troubled, to the point where I genuinely couldn't sleep. And any time I spent away from the distractions that I would impose upon myself, specifically for me it was video games, I would very quickly start to spiral into turmoil. The way I did actually manage to sleep for a period of about 5 years was I would make myself so exhausted so that when I did turn my computer off and stop playing video games and I went into bed, I would immediately fall asleep because of how exhausted I was. And I had to do that because otherwise I would lie there for 8 hours sometimes, just torturing myself mentally. I was on antidepressants, which made me deeply uncomfortable. The reason why I was on them was not by any choice of my own. It was my choice, but my mom got so worried for me that I had to go on them because otherwise I was a threat to myself. And even though I look back at it with distaste, I don't like being, you know, the idea of taking chemicals to alter your brain. I'm not sure what would have happened if I didn't go onto them, so it is what it is. I'm here now, so I would sad post every day. I could go onto my Instagram archives, my story archives, and I could see me essentially trauma dumping and brain dumping every single day, using my social medias as essentially a diary. I'm not sure why I did that. I think it was just out of desperation, really. I just needed to be heard by someone. I felt like I needed some sort of release. And in many different occasions throughout this period of struggle, I certainly did want to unalive myself many times, actually. So yeah. I was also the CEO of anxiety. I find that these two typically go hand in hand. Maybe you get depressed because you're chronically anxious. I know if now I cut off all human contact and the idea of speaking to another human scared me, I would feel very inadequate and also very deeply upset. So they feed into each other. But I had terrible anxiety. I couldn't make any eye contact with anyone. A lot of people, including health professionals, were very sure that I was perhaps autistic because of my eye contact. I refused to accept that diagnosis though, because I felt like it disempowered me and it gave me an excuse to not be good at eye contact. But my social skills were that bad. If someone was talking to me, I would not look at their eyes for a split second. I would be staring at the ground, like that bad. I had no actual friends at this point. Obviously, I left school and that's when my anxiety and my depression really started like cranking up. And I'd get invited out sometimes, and I did go out a select few times. I went to like a few house parties and stuff before like it really set in. But eventually I started saying no to these things, and you know, as I continued to just say no, like people just stopped inviting me and I didn't have any friends anymore, and that's not their fault. I also had panic attacks doing very basic social things. I remember having panic attacks by just going round to the shop 1 minute walk away from my house to just get milk. I was completely incapable of like very basic social interactions. The world, frankly, absolutely terrified me. I was convinced that everyone was out to get me and everyone was judging me, and I had all of these thoughts constantly running through my head, and every time I was exposed to any sort of social interaction, it would result in me just having a panic attack. I had no bitches, obviously. I was chronically online, and I did do a few long distance relationships, which in my opinion is mostly a very silly thing to do, especially when you're in no position to actually organize like meeting each other in real life. I don't count my online relationships as actual relationships. I think it was just like silly, filling the void in my heart type of beat, you know. But I got a few countries down in my dating girls Pokédex, so that's cool. Got a Russian, Norwegian, American, Filipino, just to name a few. But yeah, no, I had no bitches. And I couldn't leave the house. Yeah, I just basically barely left the house over a period of like 4 years. Man. Good times. I needed to change, guys, and if you're in a similar position, you also need to change too, because it's no way to fucking live. And there were points in my life where I was convinced this is it, this is my life, it's gonna fucking suck, I'm gonna have to just ride it out and get through, because I don't want to kill myself, because I have obligations to my family, and I'm just gonna have to ride it out. I'm just gonna have to suffer, and it is what it is. But I tell you now, as a man who has completely turned it around, fucking completely. Depression and anxiety, it's not any sort of factor in my life. I've completely transformed my life. I have zero depression, zero social anxiety. I'm actually slick socially now, much slicker anyway. But if you're in a similar position to what I was in, you need to change, because I was a ticking time bomb. I really was. The only thing that kept me alive was my obligation to be alive. But at some points, when you're so depressed and down bad, I can see why your honor to your family to stay alive can slip. It can. If you just have one bad fucking day, for example, you know, which is what happened with me a few times. I just had a bad fucking day, man, a real bad day. And at that point, when I was that down bad, I'm ashamed to admit it, but maybe my honor slipped, you know, maybe. And you might be in a similar position. These things can happen, so you need to turn it around. And I'm here to tell you, you fucking can turn it around. And step zero to doing that is knowing that it's in your hands. The reason why in my brain I was coming to acceptance with my life just being turmoil and suffering is because I was told that's a possibility, and that's probably the case. I was told that I'm clinically depressed and I'm just gonna have to learn to live with it and be on medication and just roll with the punches. That was literally what I was told. It's fucking bullshit. Absolute horseshit. It's laziness is what it is. I need to say this to you now, and it's gonna sound very harsh, but it's what you need to hear. You need to, I'm speaking to younger Sam, bro. Bro, you need to hear this, okay? No one gives a fuck about you. No one gives a fuck about you, bro. Seriously, no one gives a fuck. You need to do it yourself. It's all you, bro. Seriously, no one will do it for you. If you try to get someone else to do it for you, they will be lazy, they will give you a pill, and they will tell you to get on with it. That's the most they can do. That's not a life that's worth living. You need to build your life which is worth living yourself. And first, you need to accept it's in your hands, and you can change. Fuck that belief that they've drilled into your skull saying you can't do anything about it. You're gonna have to learn to live with it, Sam. That's bullshit. Take control over your own life, your own circumstances. Take responsibility. It's fucking scary, and at first you're gonna have to suffer quite immensely. You are. It's gonna be fucking hard, but you have to if you're going to turn this around. And your results is directly tied in with your beliefs. If you believe that you're gonna live an entire life of suffering and turmoil, you will. And there's nothing I can do to help you if you choose to believe that. But you can choose to believe the opposite. And that's what you need to do right now. You need to choose to believe that you can and will change. And you need to make that commitment to yourself. And you need to also understand what's coming, because once again, before sunshine comes rain. Step one is, in my opinion, an absolute fucking necessity. And it's the easiest way to get this ball rolling, and it's to just start exercising. There's zero downsides to exercising, but the biggest upside in this case, okay, if you're like me, in this case, the biggest upside to exercise is the fact that you're taking an hour and a half of your day, and you're not only doing something insanely positive for yourself and building towards some goals, but you're also not doing some bullshit for that hour and a half. You're replacing, for example, video games for 2 hours with 2 hours of the gym. That is incredible. I can suggest lifting weights because I'm a very numbers driven person. Will change your life. It will give you something to drive towards, which is what you need. You need a goal, because during this period of time of suffering, which you're going to go through before you reach fulfillment, you're gonna need something to distract yourself. You need to stay busy. I was so down bad during this period that I genuinely sometimes spent 6 hours of the day in the gym, and I had to do that, otherwise I would have went fucking mental. But so be it, so fucking be it. I'm glad I did, even though it's obsessive and insane. That is better than the alternative. The gym is an absolute must if you're gonna turn this around. And you'll start to actually really fucking like it as well. It's the easiest way to replace bad habits, and it's the easiest way to see tangible progress towards a goal. You track your numbers. Last week I lifted 10 kg. This week I'm gonna lift 11 kg. I went to the gym every single day, but once again, I became very obsessive because that's what I needed. You do whatever works for you. We're gonna ramp up the ante now. We're gonna start trying to socialize in the gym. This is exactly what I did as well. Because I was depressed and anxious and I spent no time out of the house for the last 3 or 4 years. I didn't have a job. I literally was a hermit. The only time I could socialize was in the gym, and I didn't have a fucking clue how. So I made the conscious, and this will take a conscious effort, to actually attempt to upgrade your social skills. If this means trying to hold eye contact with someone for a split second, that's good. That's what I had to do. I think it took me like 6 months of practicing eye contact before someone's eyes could meet mine and they wouldn't just dart away straight away. And even still now, sometimes I get that. But it took a conscious effort. I went into the gym and I was like, I'm gonna lift weights, but I'm also gonna try and find a way to level up my social skills here. And you're gonna have to risk looking like a bit of a weirdo. I probably looked a bit weird to a lot of people, and the reason why is because socializing in a lot of environments, specifically my home environment, and probably yours too, is seen as weird. The thing is, I want you to reframe that, because you're not weird, they're weird. It's actually really fucking weird for you to share a space with a bunch of people who you've not even introduced yourself to. You don't even know if they're friendly or foe. That's weird even on an evolutionary standpoint. Imagine if you're a caveman and you're sharing the same like water hole or whatever, water source, and there's another tribe right next to you and you haven't even said hi, you haven't waved, you haven't figured out if they're friendly or foe. It's like, I'd be just thinking like, I'm just waiting to get clubbed around the head by one of these guys. It's just weird to not even just introduce yourself to people you're sharing an environment with. So reframe that, that's bullshit. Socializing with other people isn't weird. However, it is weird to a lot of people, weird people. So you have to be the weirdo, okay? And sometimes you have to get creative. I'm gonna share with you my favorite trick to actually start talking to someone. And this is beginner entry-level stuff, so you can use it right away if you're really struggling. Firstly though, try and get eye contact. And then once you've got some eye contact going, try go for a smile, yeah? But then once you wanna actually speak to someone, I do the bag trick. So I have my bag in the gym. What I used to do is I would look around the weight room and I'd see someone who looked perhaps friendly, a little bit approachable. Now, I'd never have the balls to actually approach them because I was super awkward. But what I did find was it was much easier to go up to someone and talk to them if there was a reason. So for example, if they were using a machine, maybe going up to them and asking them, hey man, how many sets you got left, is a lot easier than just going up to them and being like, hey, you seem nice, what's your name? So I would create a reason to speak to people. And my reason was, hey man, I'm just gonna go to the toilet real quick. Do you mind watching my bag? And I'd be like, yeah, of course. And then in that small interaction, if they seemed friendly enough, while I was pissing or pretending to piss, because sometimes I didn't even need to piss, I just wanted to practice my social skills, I would gather up the courage when I came back out to go up to them and say, oh, thanks man, by the way, my name's Sam, what's your name? Or I'd give them a compliment. And once again, if they give you a friendly response, some people will make it a lot easier for you to speak to them. Some people will be like, you know, leave me alone, I'm in the zone. fair enough. But you've gauged that response with the bag trick, and that's the point of the bag trick. And using this, I actually made a few friends. Not friends, but like, you know, acquaintances in the gym, which when I went in, perhaps we would smile at each other, maybe we'd give each other a nod, maybe we'd have a little chat. And this allowed me to continue to level up my social skills comfortably. And by the way, I don't want you to get caught up with talking to women at all, because if you can't even speak to men, you certainly can't speak to women. And you might have social pressure and a lot of YouTubers and alpha males telling you like, bro, you need to do cold approach. Don't worry about that. That's like level 10. You're at level fucking 3 right now, okay? Just focus on talking to dudes. Honestly, old people, the easiest people to talk to. Start at old people if you're really struggling. I've just realized that I've got step 2 again here, but whatever. Next, you want to continue replacing more bad habits. You want to start entering that positive feedback loop. And you also want to reframe how you feel rewarded. Maybe right now, your idea of a treat is playing a game of League of Legends or eating a chocolate bar. You actually want to begin rewiring your brain to see that as a bad thing. That's step 1 of this, by the way. It's a bad thing to eat a chocolate bar or play a League of Legends game. And a lot of people, they don't move forward in life because they don't even accept that it's a bad thing. They cope. They say, it's just one game of League, it's not that deep. I get to speak to my friends while playing it, so it's fine. No, it's bad. Understand and accept that it's bad, and if you continue to do it, that's fine. But at least know that it's bad. And then eventually, when your self-esteem begins catching up, you won't have time for bad shit in your life. And again, this is going to be one of the most painful periods of your life, because I went from playing like 12 hours a day of video games to more like 2 hours. Like I say, I didn't just cut it out entirely, but I spent a lot less time there. And a big key to this is actually just being busy. And once you disconnect from whatever you are using to distract yourself from your reality, it's horribly painful. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without wanting to burst out into tears, because I had just deteriorated and not developed so much at this point. In my prime youthful years, I had just decayed. This will be a very hard period of your life, but again, it has to be done, and you should have safeguards set up, because it was this period of time where I had the most suicidal thoughts. Okay, I had a really bad night and I was walking to the gym. It was 1 a.m. and I was going to the gym because I couldn't sleep. And I used to walk along this main road and there were cars, and I was really just thinking about throwing myself in front of a car. But then I actually called Hamza, which was my video editing client, and also he became my best friend at the time. And Hamza helped me sort of calm down and put things into perspective, and I had a little workout, and then I went home and I felt, you know, better. Not good, but you know, not wanting to jump in front of a car. So that might be an example of a safeguard, you know, a good friend who you can call in times like this. But be wary, you can't rely on friends. So you need to have safeguards set up for yourself. You know, you need strong beliefs is the main thing. I didn't find a lot of power in believing this back then, but recently, if I was to give some advice for younger Sam, I'd find a lot of power in believing in like a higher being. When times get tough for me now, I just say to myself, this is God testing me to see if I'm worthy of whatever rewards await for me. And that gives me so much power to just go through with it anyway, you know, just get on with shit. Hopefully at this point, you're starting to want to ramp it up and you aren't thinking about throwing yourself in front of a car, for example. Now we've defeated that roadblock, we can actually stop thinking selfishly and start thinking in other people's wants. And that might sound backwards, but believe it or not, if you start actually going around the world and thinking in other people's interests, how can I make someone else's day better? How can I make someone else's life easier? That in turn makes you feel much better. So you can start really small. You can leave your house to go to the gym, for example, and you can go out with the aim of just making someone smile. Maybe you see someone walking their dog and you stop and you have a little chat. That's made their day so much better, because more likely than not, no one really stops to talk to them, inquire about them, learn their name, and we crave small social interactions like that every single day. So you can really make someone's day a lot better with just a small thing like that, or even just walking past someone and smiling at them. And then also you can look at like what your passions are, your old passions. I'll give you an example. Like when I was down bad, I used to find a lot of fulfillment in just making my friends laugh with my old gaming videos. So I would literally record us playing video games, and then I would edit them in funny gaming videos, and I would do that with the sole purpose of just making my friends laugh, and that in turn made me feel good. But then when you're at this stage, you might realize like, oh yeah, you know, that thing I used to do with the editing, I can actually turn that into something which can not only provide value to the marketplace, which will make me a better person as well, but also I can start making some money. You don't have to know exactly what this is just yet, but you want to be exploring, okay? Video editing was mine, and it proved really lucrative. And the sooner you start, the better. The goal here is to be too busy to be sad, and too tired to not fall asleep. You're too busy doing your video editing to be thinking about how terrible the world is and all this shit. And then you're too tired to not just get into bed and fall asleep because you've been training so hard. From here, you want to continually just overload. Continue stacking more positive habits and replacing them with bad habits. And you want to continue to lean into your positive feedback loop that you're creating for yourself. Once again, guys, you have to create it yourself. You have to make a conscious effort every single day until it comes naturally to you. And at this point, you might even want to consider getting off your anti-sad meds, which I can really recommend because they're not good. It's just not good to need to rely on these things. However, if you need them, then so be it. But maybe at this point, you're considering getting off your anti-sad meds because you're a lot more stable. And you also want to just continually, progressively socialize. So at this point, I actually reached out to some of my old school friends and asked if they want to hang out. And this led to a few different problems, which I'm going to talk about later, but essentially you want to start building yourself a bit of a social life. And from this point, you've done it. You're not insanely happy. You've not got everything that you want just yet, but you have the foundations to be able to build something. And that's what this channel's about. It's about building. You have all the tools you need. You have the mindsets. You have the understanding that God and life will continue to test you, but you actually love hardship because hardship equals growth. You understand that life has a plan for you. So whether good things happen or bad things happen, they always happen for a reason. And one final thing, guys, if you take anything from this video, please take this. You need to avoid the victim mindset like a plague. What the victim mindset does is completely rob you of any potential to actually improve your circumstances. It takes the responsibility out of your hands, and you'll notice that the very first step 0 of this was to take responsibility and to understand that it is in your hands. The victim mindset will take this out of you. It's not my fault. I was born this way. It's the government's fault. It's X or Y's fault. They were a bad friend. They treat me this way. All of that shit you need to avoid like the plague, because what people do is they convince themselves that they're victims, and then they lock themselves in a self-fulfilling prophecy of actually being lifelong victims to their circumstances. It is the absolute worst mindset that you can adopt, and if you take anything from this video, it is that. Do not ever adopt a victimhood mindset. Now boys, here's a few traps to avoid. Poor quality friendships. You might have a few friends which you still have around from when you were like playing games 12 hours a day. A bitter pill that you need to swallow is you might have to cut these friends off. And the reason why you might have to cut them off is because you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if they're not on a similar pathway to you and they're still doing the same bullshit, you're not going to want to spend time with them. And not only that, you'll actually find with people that people will treat you as if you were your lowest self, even if you have grown like over a 2-year span. They'll treat you the same as if when they met you when you're at your lowest, because that's what's most comfortable for them. So in order to update your self-image, you do need to get rid of your old friends. That's just a brutal pill that you need to swallow. And it's also a trap that you need to avoid falling into, because if you keep these people around long enough, they are just going to plateau your self-image and you're not going to be able to grow beyond that. Also, I did mention earlier that I reached out to a few of my school friends and I started going out with those guys. And that did lead to a partying and drugs phase in my life for about 6 to 9 months. I'd go out once every week, every 2 weeks, and I'd do drugs. And that's not good at all. And you need to avoid that like the plague. It's an absolute waste of time, it's brain rot, and it's not going to lead to any sort of fulfillment in your life, only temporary fun. You should be proud of your progress. A lot of people, they will psyop you into believing that you shouldn't be proud and that pride is bad. You should be proud. You should be proud of the transformation you've made. You shouldn't be arrogant, but you should look at yourself in the mirror and feel a sense of pride for the transformation that you've put yourself through. You had to do that. Once again, it's all in your hands. So no matter what happens to you, good or bad, it is in your hands. So if you do something good, that is entirely your responsibility and you should be proud. And also guys, one final thing is just not identifying problems. For example, example, if you have underlying issues with your family, which is much more comfortable to ignore and not address, that's going to weigh quite heavily on you subconsciously. And I suggest either dealing with things like that head on instead of allowing them to fester, or just moving away from the issue. If I did it, you can too. You wasn't born this way, and it's all in your hands. You can turn it around. You can and you will change. I believe in you. I love you very much. I sympathize with you, but I'm here to give you a kick up the ass and tell you it's in your hands and you can switch it around right now. And if you need more of my help, please hit me up on Instagram, subscribe to the channel. I'm here to help. If you want to learn how to make money online through video editing from the comfort of your home, click the first link in the description. And thank you for watching. I believe in you. Take care, boys. Oh!